The footsteps start again right under my bed. Slow, tired steps, coming up through the floorboards in a rhythm this building shouldn't have. Leather on stone that isn't there anymore. Heel toe, a pause, like someone bending to lift a child. Then another step, a little lighter, a little quicker, trying to keep up. My name is Jan Kaczmarek, in 44. During the uprising, I was a liaison officer for Kitty. My job was not to shoot. My job was to know the sewer maps, underrod me see the last way out, when the city above us burned. I spent nights walking under these same streets, while people crawled behind me in the dark, hands on the belt of the one in front, praying the Germans wouldn't think to lift a manhole cover. Now I lie in this small room on the 3rd floor of a gray block near Aloj Jerusalemski, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. The hospital smells of disinfectant, steam, boiled barley soup from the kitchen. The radiator hisses. A tram screeches outside, turning down toward the river. None of those sounds match what I hear below me. There used to be a tunnel under this street. They bricked it up long after the war. Poured cement, cut off the entrances, built offices on top, turned the nearest manhole into a flower bed with geraniums. The city planners like to say Warsaw healed. The footsteps never stopped. Pan Jan, are you awake? The nurse's voice comes through the door, soft, cautious. She always knocks twice, never 3 times. I listen to her knuckles. 2 hollow taps. Then silence. The other sound keeps going. It doesn't care about visiting hours. I turn my head to the far wall, where the paint peels in a long, thin crack. It runs from floor to ceiling like a line on an old map. I know exactly what it would cross if it kept going down, past the foundations, into the earth. I still have the whole layout of those tunnels in my head, even if my hands shake now when I try to drink tea. There were 5 of us the first night down there, 5 living men. I made myself count them so I wouldn't start counting the others by mistake. I hear Marek first, as always, even now. I see his hand flicking his cigarette, sparks dropping into the puddle by the manhole on Crutcher Street. Wide mouth, always on the edge of a grin, humming little pieces of tango marches when he was nervous. Again with the map, Pan Lieutenant. He said that night, tapping the rolled paper under my arm. It's not going to move by itself. He said that, and right then there was a little vibration under our boots, as if something deep in the street had shifted position in the dark. I remember that shiver in the stones better than I remember his face. My present bed creaks when I swing my legs over the side. The floor is cold. The footsteps pause almost politely, like whoever is down there is waiting to see what I do next. I don't turn on the light. If I turn on the light, the hallway motion sensor will trip, and that will make the nurse come. I walk to the window and press my hand to the glass. Outside, Warsaw glows. White headlights, red taillights, the faint reflection of the Palace of Culture on low clouds. People think the city is loud. Down there, it was louder. Last group tonight, I told them then, in August 1944, standing over the open manhole with the humid night leaning on our shoulders. 20 heads, maybe 22. Some children. No one brings suitcases, only what they can carry on their bodies. If they can't walk, they don't go. We don't have time. Piotr looked away when I said that. He was older than Marek by 10 years. With a neat parting in his hair, he tried to keep even in the ruins. Before the war, he had worked at the post office. He sorted letters then. Down there, he sorted names. What about the rabbi? He asked. The one with the bad leg. He's already waiting by the entrance in the cellar. You promised him. I know what I promised, I said. We'll see how many we get through before the Germans push closer. My stomach clenched as I said it. I kept my voice flat. Above us, somewhere beyond the buildings, a flare hissed into the sky. Its light leaked between roofs, turning chimney smoke into pale ghosts for a few seconds. Then darkness folded back over downtown Warsaw. Do you hear that? Marek asked suddenly. The street around us was mostly quiet. A dog barked once, far off. Somewhere a window slammed. In the stillness, The sound that reached us was a faint, steady rhythm coming up through the iron circle at our feet. Footsteps, light, quick, many of them, way below. Too many to be rats, too ordered to be water. The patrol from the other exit, Piotr suggested, but he said it without conviction. No one is down there yet, I said. We're the first. We listened. The steps faded, dissolved into an echo that had nowhere to go. The first time we used that tunnel, we had barely had time to argue about it. There were the sewers, everyone knew, thick with gas and backed up filth, running under Rodney Sea like black rivers. The Home Army had used them since the beginning of the uprising. The Germans had learned faster than we wanted to admit. They lobbed grenades into manholes. They pumped smoke and gas down. They waited at likely exits with dogs. This tunnel was narrower and older. It didn't smell like sewage the way the others did. It smelled like dust and the faint, dry rot of old beams. No registration on any municipal map. The entrance was hidden behind a false wall in the cellar of a bombed-out print shop on Crutcher. The other end opened, almost by accident, into a half-collapsed basement near the ruins of the old ghetto wall. The old caretaker of the print shop had told us about it. He was a thin man with a white mustache and nicotine fingers. He showed us the brick that moved if you pressed it twice. My grandfather helped dig this, he said as we crouched beside him. They moved books through here when the SARS men were still beating boys in the streets. Paper, ink, pamphlets. The Russians never found it. Lucky for us, Marek said. The caretaker didn't smile. His eyes were dark and wet in the lantern light. They said you should never close it on a man still inside, he added. Once the last one comes out, you wait. You listen. If you can still hear anyone walking in there, you don't seal it. If you seal it while the footsteps are still going, they don't stop. Not ever. They walk until they find someone's house above to come out in. Old stories, Piotr muttered. Old stories outlive new ones, the caretaker replied, and spat on the floor. He didn't come with us. He locked his upstairs door and refused to leave the building. We never saw him again after the shell hit 3 days later. On the first night, we guided 13 people through. 2 mothers, 7 children, 1 old man who kept both hands clamped to the handles of a small wicker pram, even though there was no child in it. Another couple who didn't speak, just clutched each other's sleeves. I led the way with a dim flashlight, shielded with paper. Marek followed, carrying the other torch and swearing softly every time he banged his shoulder on the curved brick ceiling. Piotr took the rear, counting as he always counted. 13 souls, he said when we closed the false wall behind us. Lucky for some, unlucky for them if they stay up there, Marek said. Move. The air changed the moment we stepped inside. City smell stayed at the threshold. In the tunnel it was all dryness and dust. Our steps sounded wrong. Too loud, too alone. Keep your hands on the wall, if you feel dizzy, I said. It's straight, except for one left turn, after 30 meters. Don't run, don't stop, don't talk. If someone falls, the person behind lifts them. Don't all stop. We don't have time. No talking. One of the children whispered it. A girl, with a ribbon that had once been blue. Her hair was tangled. Her dress was dirty. She held a rag doll by one leg. Whisper if you must, Marek said over his shoulder. Save it for when you come out. We walked. My boots scuffed grit. I counted the steps in my head to keep distance. 80 steps to the turn. I could hear the people behind me. Bare feet slapping, shoes scraping, a cough, someone's breath whistling, a child sniffling. And beneath that not beneath, but beside it another faint rhythm. Like ghostly boots stepping half a pace out of sync, down the same invisible line. At the bend, I raised my light just enough to see damp stains on the bricks overhead. Dark streaks where the ceiling had once leaked. The stains made long hanging shapes in the weak cone of the torch. Thin, like men stretched out, their arms brushing the walls. When we reached the far cellars near the ghetto ruins, the first thing that hit us was the sour smell of old smoke and charred plaster. The bodies had been cleared from the streets, mostly. The walls still remembered where they had been. Out, I whispered. One by one, careful with the rubble. We're close to the German lines here. No crying, no shouting, no names. Piotr squeezed past me to the broken stair. He held up 2 fingers and started counting under his breath as each figure squeezed out of the tunnel mouth and into the shadow of the collapsed house. 12, he whispered. 12, I turned. There were 13. He counted again. He touched their shoulders lightly as they passed. 12, he repeated. 13 at the entrance. 12 here. Marek swore softly. Which one? The old man with the prom. The prom was there. So was the old man. So was the girl with the blue ribbon. I looked back into the tunnel, into that narrow curved throat of brick where the light seemed to sink instead of bounce. Anyone fall? I asked. Anyone stop? They shook their heads. What did? No one spoke. No one stepped forward and said a name. Behind us, far, far away, something made a sound like a single heel striking stone. Once, then nothing. Maybe I miscounted, Piotr said, but his voice stuttered. Next group in an hour, I told him. We don't argue number now, we move. The steps under my hospital floor pick up a third pattern, a limping rhythm. Someone short of breath. They are slower now than they were in 1944, or maybe I'm just better at hearing the spaces between them. I shuffle back to the bed and sit down. The pain in my knees flares. I can feel each pulse and the old scars where mine fragments went in and never came out. The fluorescent strip in the corridor outside flicks on with a buzz as some shadow passes the motion sensor. My door remains closed. I listen. The footsteps below do not match any living nurse's shoes. The second night in the tunnel, the legend came with us in a more obvious way. We were already tired. The Germans had pushed closer from the west. Tanks groaned along a lodge. We heard the tracks at odd hours, grinding the rubble, looking for pockets of resistance. Fires kept breaking out on their own, from smashed gas lines and hot metal. The sky above Warsaw stayed orange for 3 days without stopping. We were ordered to clear as many civilians as we could from a cluster of cellars near Marszałkowska. Refugees, mostly Jews who had slipped out of the ghetto before and hidden in sympathetic Polish apartments, then fled again when the uprising caught the Germans by the throat. Old women with starched scarves, men with hollow cheeks and sharp eyes, children whose hair had already gone thin at the sides. The entrance on our side was the same. The print shop smelled of old ink and burnt wood. The caretaker's clock had stopped when the blast shattered his front windows. The hands were frozen at 1717, but I didn't notice that until much later. 30 this time, Piotr said as they crowded into the cellar. Too many. If we send them above ground, they won't make it to streets, I said. We do it in 2 lines. No one talks. We move like a snake. No snakes in tunnels, a woman whispered. Snakes are for fields. She had sharp little teeth, that woman, and a scarf tied under her chin. Her name was She kept correcting her son's posture, even as they clutched at her skirt. There are other things in tunnels, an old man in the far corner said. His eyes were like black stones, sunk deep. My father was from Praga. He used to tell me about the basilisk under Krakow. You know that story. We're not under the old town, Marek said impatiently. We're under Radmiasy. No basilisk here. Only rats and impatient men. The basilisk was not one place, the old man replied. It came where people trapped fear in stones. Places under the city where things kept moving after you thought they were gone. He tapped a bony finger on the cellar wall 3 times. They said if you heard footsteps where no one walked and turned to look, it stopped your heart. Enough, I said. The children don't need this. We move now. First 15 with me. The rest wait with Piotr. When we come back, we went. The tunnel swallowed us. The light from the cellar door shrank to a rectangle, then to a coin, then to nothing. As we moved, I caught a faint whisper from the back of the line. A woman's murmur in Yiddish, words too soft to catch. It sounded like a prayer. It shifted entangled with the scrape of shoes. Then another sound cut across it. A child laughing. I stopped. In that kind of darkness, stopping is dangerous. People bunch, they stumble. I turned slightly, my shoulder brushing Brick, who laughed. I whispered. No one answered. 20 eyes stared at me, hollow as mine. Keep moving, Merrick hissed from behind the second group, far back at the entrance. His voice came thin and tinny down the pipe of the tunnel. We're exposed here. I heard a laugh. I said quietly. Just don't step on anyone you don't see. We reached the far entrance. 15 out, 15 breaths, fast. 15 sets of eyes, blinking in the ash-dusted light of the ruined cellars. Above us, a heavy gun fired somewhere along the river's direction. Dust shook from the ceiling. As we turned back, Marek's beam swung too high for a moment and caught something written on the bricks at chest level. It was just a line of letters, uneven, like someone had scratched them in haste with a nail or the edge of a coin. Polish letters, not German, words I knew. Ni, zamykaj, Kirioni, Jeshi, Ida. Do not close it while they are still walking. Marek stopped, still crouched. Did you? I didn't write that, I said. Piotr traced the letters lightly with one finger when he came through with his group. Fresh, he said. Not old soot. The brick dust is still loose. Above us, something heavy exploded, shaking the tunnel. A crack of light appeared somewhere ahead, where a seam between bricks shifted for half a heartbeat, then sealed again. On the third crossing that night, we had our first deliberate contact. We were halfway through, my hand on the left wall, when the light behind me flickered. One of the boys from the dentist's quarter had a weak battery. His beam cut and came back, twisting shadows. Someone bumped my back. Then another weight pressed against my shoulder lightly, like a person trying to squeeze by without touching too much. Single line, I hissed. No passing. I'm not passing. The woman behind me whispered. I didn't move. The weight slid forward between us anyway. A presence without heat. Boots that didn't scuff. The air in front of my face cooled as if the tunnel had opened into night. In the thin penumbra of my torch, a set of wet footprints appeared on the dust, in front of my boots. Bare feet, narrow, child-sized. The prints were clear at the edges, as if the feet had just come out of a puddle. They went on ahead, each one forming in silence, then dulling as dust clung. Do you see that? Someone breathed. Yes, I said. My throat hurt. Keep moving. Don't touch them. One of the boys tripped, and his knee landed right where the last print had been forming. His skin came up smeared with gray, as if he'd pushed through nothing at all. He whimpered. We kept moving. Behind us, another set of steps began, heavier, the steady, clipped pace of men in boots, who know exactly where they're going. In the hospital room, my water glass shakes slightly on the bedside table. The footsteps under the floor shift direction. They are no longer going straight. They are circling. I reach for the drawer in my nightstand and pull it open. The old map lies there, folded so many times the creases are as fragile as onion skin. I know it by touch. The scrawl of my own pencil marks. The red cross where that tunnel once ran. I spread it on my lap. The line passes exactly under this building. The place where the footsteps turn is right about where my bed stands now. The nurse opens the door a crack. Pan Jan. You need anything? It's late. I'm fine, I say, folding the map before she can see. Just listening. She tilts her head. To what? The city, I say. It doesn't sleep. She smiles politely, not hearing the other rhythm. The big push came 2 weeks into the uprising. German artillery pounded our sector. The SS units moved in closer, house by house. We had fewer bullets, fewer men, fewer buildings to hide in with each day. We still had the tunnel. Orders came down from the commander of the district. Evacuate as many non-combatants as possible toward the ruins of the old ghetto. Then beyond, toward the area where our contacts could guide them further out along the river. After this, Marek said, rolling his shoulders, maybe we'll get lucky and they'll bomb the tunnel itself. Then no more sewer duty. We can go back to being proper insurgents. shooting at tanks that don't notice us. He laughed, but his hands were restless. He kept touching the Sten gun hanging under his coat, as if he expected it to be taken away. Piotr had a list now. Names on scraps of paper, passed from hand to hand in the basements. He read them off quietly in the print shop cellar, while sirens wailed somewhere above us. "Richella and her boys again," he said. "She refused to go last time without her sister. The sister is dead now. She understands. The rabbi with the leg. 2 invalids from the hospital. A teacher from Kolobor. 3 children whose parents are missing. That one. He touched a line twice. That one has no name. Just girl in red coat. "We don't have time for fairy tale coats," Marek said. "Her papers burned," Piotr replied. "She doesn't remember her surname. We need to call her something. Call her fast," I said. "Shells won't wait for her identity." The cellar door shook with the first impact close by. Dust sifted down. A child cried. Someone began to say a Hail Mary in Polish. Someone else whispered the Shema. The old caretaker's clock on the wall had no glass left. The hands stayed at 1717. "Listen," the woman in the corner said. "It was Richella. Do you hear that? They are already walking." She meant the others. The ones we had not brought in yet. The ones who had somehow found their way into the tunnel without us. We opened the wall and went down. This time the air in the tunnel was cooler. It tasted metallic, like coins on the tongue. The light ahead wavered as artillery shook the city. Dust trickled from hairline cracks. We hadn't gone 20 meters when I heard it. Not behind us, not ahead, but all around. Footsteps, echoing in a space that sounded bigger than the tunnel should be. Layers of sound, small, large, bare, booted, some fast, some slow. A whole procession moving in parallel to us where no passage existed. "Stay close to the wall," I said. "Do not let go." Marek's torch began to flicker. He cursed and slapped it. The circle of yellow swam on the bricks and then steadied. As we approached the bend, a draft of cold air slid under my collar, against the sweat on my neck. It smelled faintly of river water and candle wax. A girl's voice, very close to my left ear, spoke in accented Polish. "Don't let them close it while we're still here." I jerked, my shoulders smacking the wall. The girl in the red coat, 3 people back, gasped. "I didn't say anything," she whispered. "Who did?" Marek hissed. "No talking," I snapped, though my teeth rattled. "We're halfway. We move." At one point the tunnel widened unexpectedly. It bulged like a little chamber, before narrowing again. We had never seen that curve on the map. In the wider space, the acoustics changed. The footsteps that were not ours came into focus. They were marching in the opposite direction, coming from the ghetto side, heading back toward Rodmy Sea, line of unseen bodies brushing past our shoulders. I felt pressure on my sleeve, as if a coat button had caught it. I smelled burned cloth, and the faintest trace of hair gone singed. "They're going the wrong way," Piotr muttered from the back. "They're going toward the guns." "Don't look at them," the woman in the scarf whispered. "Just keep your head down." We didn't look. We couldn't. There was nowhere to turn except forward. The unseen column moved through us, and around us, and into us. Their steps synchronized with ours until I couldn't tell which echo belonged to my boots. At the exit, the room on the ghetto side was not empty. We squeezed out into a low basement choked with dust and the smell of old brick. And there, sitting on an overturned crate under the hole of a half-blocked window, was a man in a long black coat. He had a beard down to his chest, and a left leg wrapped in cloth from knee to ankle. "You took your time," he said. I recognized him from the cellars. The rabbi with the bad leg, but he had not been in this first group. Piotr glanced at his list, then at the faces, counting. "You were supposed to be in the next run," he said. "I came with them," the rabbi replied. "I walked at the front. You didn't see me because you were looking at the wall." He nodded, toward my torch hand. "You look at the wall when you're afraid of what's in the middle." "Who opened the exit?" I demanded. It was already open. he said simply. The stairwell behind him was clear. No brick, no rubble, no sign of earlier breaks. The way up into the shattered street looked almost polite. For a moment, I thought we had come out in the wrong place. Then my eyes landed on a familiar crack in the corner foundation, a characteristic curve in the old plaster. This was the same cellar. Someone had cleaned it up that quickly, or something had. Behind us, the tunnel exhaled. A rush of cool air brushed our legs. The footsteps faded back into the dark. Next group, I said tightly. We don't linger. We didn't see the rabbi again after that night. The worst run came 2 days before we lost the district. We had already pushed our luck. The Germans were starting to suspect that something was moving under their feet. They put machine guns on some manholes. They dropped grenades into others. They pumped fuel and lit it, sending orange tongues of fire down into the deeper sewers. Flames don't bend around corners easily, but smoke does. Men came up coughing black. Our tunnel stayed clear, for now. The order we got that morning was simple and cruel. No more evacuations of civilians. The tunnel was now to be kept for fighters and couriers only. Someone up there has decided the rest are acceptable losses, Marek said, spitting on the cellar floor. They sit in a safer basement, with better chairs, and they sign a paper. That's it. The old woman with the scarf is an acceptable loss. Piotr folded the last of his lists with slow fingers. What do we do? He asked. We do what we're told, I said. The words tasted like rust. We keep the tunnel open for the men who still carry guns, and if they're not the ones who deserve it. Piotr asked quietly. Outside, a shell landed somewhere close. The building shook. The caretaker's clock fell from the wall and shattered. Its hands jumped as they hit the ground. When the dust settled, they pointed at a new time. The second's hand was still moving, but it never made a full circle. That night, we broke the order. The cellar filled again. They came because someone had told them there was still a way out, that the lieutenant with the map had not yet turned people away. Mothers with bundles, a boy with a saxophone case, an old woman carrying a bird cage with no bird inside, the teacher from Kolobors with chalk still on his sleeves. Last group, I told them. Do you understand? The last. If you know anyone else, you tell them not to wait. There will be no more. Last, Richella said. Her eyes were dry now, until someone else needs it. Piotr took me aside. If this goes wrong, they'll blame us, he said. They'll say we wasted the route on non-combatants. If it goes right, nobody will remember us at all, Marek said behind him, lighting another stolen cigarette with hands that shook. They'll remember the ones who died on the barricades, pistol in hand, not the fools who guided children through holes in the ground. You don't have to come, I told them. They both laughed at me then, short and bitter in the damp air. Yes, we do, Piotr said. We went down. The tunnel felt narrower, as if it had shrunk with each passage. My shoulders brushed the walls. The air was still. No draft, no distant rattling of pipes. Even the city's artillery seemed to have pulled back, muffled as if someone had thrown a blanket over the whole world. Halfway in, the lights went out. First Marek's torch faltered, making the bricks smear into gray streaks. Then mine cut completely. The darkness was total. I couldn't see my hand an inch from my face. The only thing that told me I was still in a real space was the pressure of the wall under my palm and the hot breath of the man behind me against my neck. Someone sobbed. A small sound strangled quickly. Don't move, I said. Everyone freeze. We don't want a pile of people. From somewhere ahead came the slow, clear sound of a heel striking stone. Not mine, not anyone's in our line. It traveled up the curve like a signal. One step, silence. Another, closer. A match flared near the middle of the group. Someone had panicked and lit it. The little flame threw wild shadows on the brick and on the faces around it. In that brief light, I saw them. They were packed into the tunnel in front of us, shoulder to shoulder. Men, women, children, some in tattered armbands, some in uniforms from campaigns long before ours. greatcoats, with old markings, caps I'd only seen in photographs. Their faces were pale, wet, distorted by soot or mud. Their eyes were wide, pupils blown. They moved without sound. Their feet made the noise instead. They were walking toward us, but not in the same lane. Their bodies passed through wall and air like smoke. On each of their throats, in the flicker, I saw a dark band, like a bruise or a rope mark. They did not look at us. They looked through us, following some line we could not see. The match went out. Someone screamed. That set off another voice, higher pitched, closer. "They're going back," the girl in the red coat whispered. I felt her fingers grip my sleeve. "They're going back in. They don't know it's over." "Shut your eyes," I said, hands on the wall. "We are the living, we don't change direction." I started forward. My boots met resistance once, twice, as if stepping through waist-deep water. Each time the air temperature dropped, then rose again. The skin on my arms prickled. Behind me, Marek swore, in a low voice. I heard the click of his Sten gun's safety. Useless. You can't shoot never-ending footsteps. Piotr was counting under his breath again, not the living, the echoes. When we reached the wide chamber, the sound swelled to a roar. Footsteps upon footsteps, layered until they became a single sustained noise like a river over stones. My chest vibrated with it. Teeth rattled. Someone lost their balance and fell to their knees. The invisible column walked right through them. "Don't close it while they're still walking," a voice said close to my ear. This time it was the old caretaker. I'd recognize that smoked-out rasp anywhere, but he was buried under 3 floors of rubble on Crutcher. We'd seen the house go down. "I hear you," I whispered, whether to him or to the ones around us. I didn't know. "I hear you. I won't." At the exit, the stairs were not clear. A section of ceiling had collapsed since the last run. Bricks and plaster had fallen across the lower half of the steps. There was a gap at the top, small but passable if you squeezed. On the other side of that gap, through the broken frame of the door, I could hear sporadic gunfire. The Germans were further away than yesterday, or closer. It was hard to tell from underground. "We'll push up the children first," I said. "Then the women, then the old. Fast." My own voice sounded thin in my ears. "We don't have long before they hear something." "I'll take the top," Marek said. He slung his Sten over his back, climbed the rubble with exaggerated care, and wedged himself into the gap. He reached down. "Send me the red coat first." She went. Her hands were small and cold. Marek hauled her up like a sack of flour. Then, another child. Another, a woman, the teacher. The boy with the saxophone case, clutching it so tight the knuckles were white. All the while, the footsteps continued behind us in the tunnel, trucking past in their own line, heading deeper into the city's guts. Heedless of anything we did, Piotr squeezed my arm. "They're speeding up," he murmured. He was right. The rhythm had changed. No longer slow processional, urgent, rushing, as if some signal had been given that made them hurry back toward whatever had burned them the first time. Something else changed too. For the first time, one of them touched me in a way I couldn't ignore. A hand closed over my wrist, strong, calloused. The grip was as solid as a living man's. I smelled pipe tobacco and cordite and the faint musk of a wool uniform. I knew that smell. I'd lived inside it for months. I turned my head before I could stop myself. In the darkness, I saw nothing, but I felt the weight of eyes on my face, inches away. A line of cold started at my skin and ran straight to my chest, where it clenched. "If you close it now," the unseen man said, his voice low. "We have nowhere left to go." "I'm not closing anything," I said through my teeth. "I'm getting them out." His grip tightened once, then let go. Jan Kaczmarek shouted from above. "They're firing closer. We need to move." I pushed the last old woman up. Her birdcage scraped the stone as she lifted it, empty and rattling. Then it was my turn. "Piotr, you're behind me," I said. "Count them as they pass." "Every last one." He nodded. His face was gray with plaster dust. His eyes were fixed on something far down the tunnel over my shoulder. "What?" I asked. "The rabbi," he whispered. "He's walking with them, back the other way." I didn't look. When I reached the top and pulled myself into the ruined cellar, the air outside hit me like a furnace. The building across the narrow street was on fire. Heat rolled through the broken window. Ash flakes drifted in, glowing at the edges. "Go," I told the little cluster of refugees pressed against the far wall. "Move along the back courtyards. Keep the buildings between you and the main streets. Our people will meet you 2 blocks east. Do not stop. Will we see you?" the girl in the red coat asked. "If you're lucky, you won't," Marek said before I could answer. "Now run." They went, one by one, then in a ragged clump. Richella grabbed my sleeve as she passed, pressed something small into my hand, and then was gone before I could open my fingers. It was a tiny silver Star of David, blackened on one point. I heard a rumble behind us, a different kind of sound than before. Stone shifting, brick grinding on brick. I looked back down the stair. The tunnel mouth was narrowing, not from a blast, from pressure. The bricks around it were bending inward like soft clay. The invisible crowd was still marching through, their footsteps slamming the walls in a steady battering rhythm, and the passage itself seemed to be collapsing under the weight of sound. "Piotr," I shouted, "move." No answer. I slid down the broken steps. Dust slid with me. At the bottom, I saw him, framed by the shrinking circle of brick. He stood in the throat of the tunnel, halfway between light and dark. His list of names was still in his left hand. His right hand was braced on the wall. He was not looking at me. He was looking past me into the dark, counting Piotr. I grabbed his arm. "We have to go. Now." He didn't blink. "They're still walking," he said quietly. "Can't you hear? They're right here, Jan. If we close it now, they'll never come out." "We're not closing it," I said. "But if we stay, we'll be sealed in with them. Move." He shook his head slightly, like a man refusing a second shot of vodka after already having too many. "Go," he said. "I'll wait until the last one passes." He pushed the list into my hand, hard enough to grind grit into my palm. "Count the living," he said. "I'll count the rest." Then the tunnel floor under his boots shuddered. A crack raced along the ceiling, sending a line of dust into his hair. The circle of the opening shrank another inch. I made a choice. I stepped backward, up, away from him. Marek grabbed my collar and dragged me the rest of the way as the opening squeezed down. The last I saw of Piotr was his raised hand, fingers still moving as if ticking off invisible heads. The tunnel mouth slammed shut. The footsteps did not stop. They came now from everywhere, through the bricks, through the foundation, up through the soles of my boots. They pounded once, twice, 3 times, then settled into a new pattern. Up, 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 run, I said. We ran. We never opened that exit again. They bombed the neighborhood 3 days later. The ghetto ruins were flattened even more. New craters overlapped old ones. Streets became ditches. Ditches became new graves. The uprising failed. We were pushed back, sector by sector, until there was nothing left to hold. When they finally rounded us up, those of us who survived, the Germans marched us along streets I barely recognized. Smoke had erased the corners. Ash had filled in the lines of my mental map. But one thing was clear even then. There were sounds under our feet that didn't match our column. Years later, when they cleaned up the city and rebuilt the avenues, they found that tunnel by accident. Workmen digging foundations hit brick that didn't belong. They broke through into a narrow passage, lined with soot and old footprints. Some of the footprints were bare. Some were booted. Some looked like they had been impressed in ash instead of mud. They led nowhere. Both ends of that particular segment were blocked by packed earth as if it had always been sealed. A man from the municipal office came to my little flat off Marshakoska with a stack of papers. "Pan Kaczmarek, we have records that you were involved with underground routes during the war," he said. "We're drawing up new sewage plans. Do you know anything about this tunnel?" He spread a fresh map on my table. There it was, a faint line, intersecting others ghosted over by new pipes and cables. There were many holes in the ground back then, I said. My tea went cold at my elbow. Some of them should stay closed. So you advise, we brick it completely, he said, jotting notes. Fill it with concrete. I heard the footsteps then, as clearly as I hear the ticking of this hospital clock now. They came up through my kitchen floor, through the legs of my chair, through the bones of my legs. No, they said, in the rhythm of heel and toe. No, no, no. I advise you listen first, I said. Before you close anything, he laughed. You can't hear tunnels, pancake. Sometimes, I replied, you can. They bricked it anyway. The night after they poured the concrete, a worker on the evening shift in the office building across the street stayed late to finish some typing. He swore, later, when I asked him, that he heard people walking under his floor all night. Not creaks, not pipes, a line of feet, wet, dry, heavy, light. He went to the toilets twice to splash his face. He said he saw muddy prints on the tiles, like someone had walked through without wiping their boots. By the time he fetched someone to show, the prints were gone. I didn't drink, he told me, years later, when we met by chance at a tram stop. I want to be clear about that. I didn't drink then. You don't have to convince me, I said. Now I sit here, old, in the building they finally put over that same line. The hospital administration picked the location because it was central, because the ground was already cleared, because the foundations were strong. At night, the footsteps find me without any effort. They come mostly after the last visitor leaves, after the cleaning lady has made her rounds, dragging the mop bucket in a sloshy rhythm, after the nurse in pink scrubs has checked my blood pressure and clucked at the numbers, after the lights in most of the rooms have gone out. They start at the far end of the corridor. I can track them by feel. Room 312, 310, 308. A pause under 306, where the veteran from Monte Cassino talks in his sleep. He sometimes mumbles in Italian, sometimes in Latin. I wondered, the first time I heard the footsteps stop under his bed, if the dead were visiting him as well. He died in winter. The steps didn't change. Then they come to me. Tonight, they pause longer. I unfold Piotr's list. The paper is almost transparent now. His handwriting, cramped and careful, snakes down the page. Most of the names are smudged beyond reading. One line is still clear. Kichenka W. Cherwinim, P.V. Sue, girl in red coat. I never learned her real name. She never came back to find me. Maybe she made it out. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she's somewhere in the line I hear every night. Small feet slapping in the dust, going the wrong way. My granddaughter visited me 2 days ago. She is 16. She wears headphones, even in the elevator. She sets her phone on my bedside table when she sits, scrolling, but she listens when I talk more than she admits. Why don't you move to our place, Giadek? She asked. You'd have your own room. You wouldn't have to hear people coughing next door all the time. There are some things you can't outrun by changing floors, I said. She frowned, not understanding. She put her feet up on the edge of the bed without asking. Her shoes left faint smears of street dust on the sheet. You know they're renovating the basement here, she said. They're going to put in new storage rooms and an underground parking for doctors. They had some trouble with the drill. Something solid down there that wasn't on their plans. The footsteps under us, very faint in the middle of the day, shifted as if someone had turned their head. Tell them, I said. Tell them to leave one corridor empty. No doors at the end. No locks. She laughed. You think they listen to kids? They barely listen to you. She is not wrong. I didn't tell her about the night last week, when I went downstairs with the orderly to smoke a cigarette by the back door. The corridor to the old laundry room was half lit. One of the bulbs had blown, and no one had replaced it yet. The floor tiles there are original, from the 70s. Brown and beige squares, chipped at the corners. Halfway along, by the bend, there were wet prints, bare feet, small. like a child had walked through water and then down the hall. I thought this wing was closed at night, I said. It is, the orderly said. He was a young man, bored, smelling faintly of cheap deodorant and cigarettes. Sometimes the cleaners forget to sign out. These are bare feet, I said. He shrugged. Maybe someone took a shower. The prints led to the blank wall at the end. There was no door there. There used to be, if you went down far enough. A brick outline in the plaster showed where someone had once sealed an entrance to something that bothered them. I didn't touch the wall. I listened. Behind the bricks, there was the sound of breathing. Many chests rising and falling at once, in a space too small. A rustle of cloth. The faint metal clink of something like a chain. Then a single voice said my name. Jan. It wasn't Piotr this time. It was Marek. You've been quiet, I said under my breath. You left me at the stair, he said, a smile hidden in the words. You always did like sending other men up first. You got out, I said. I saw you run after the others, did I? His tone tilted. Maybe I went back down. The orderly shuffled his feet. Are you talking to me, sir? No, I said. Not yet. They're still walking, Marek said through the wall. You know that, don't you? Even when they bricked us in, we don't stop. We wear the stones down, heel and toe. We keep the way open. For who? I asked. For whoever thinks they're the last, he said. They're never the last. Then the breathing stopped. The wall cooled. The prints on the floor dried, turning into dull patches, indistinguishable from the rest of the tile. The footsteps in my room now are directly under my bed again. They've finished their circuit. They're waiting. The nurse will come back in 20 minutes with my pills. She will ask if I slept. I will say I did. She doesn't need to know how many times I woke to count the echoes. There is one more thing I haven't told anyone. Not the municipal officer. Not my granddaughter. Not the other old men in the common room who liked to trade stories about which front had the worst food. A week after they poured the concrete into the tunnel, a letter arrived for me from nowhere. No return address, no stamps. Just my name, written in neat, careful handwriting like a clerk's. The envelope was thin. Inside, there was a single strip of paper, torn from a larger page. On it, in pencil, were 3 lines, sealed too early. They are still walking. Don't let them close your door. The last line looked like Piotr's script. The slight tilt to the right. The way he made his capital D. I have that strip folded inside his old list, hidden under my pillow where no cleaner will find it. I slide my hand under my head now and feel the paper's stiff edge against my fingers. The footsteps under the bed fall into a new pattern. Short, long, short, 2, short, long. It takes me a moment to realize what they're spelling. Morse, the old dots and dashes we used on field radios. SOS, you're late with your calls, I say softly. The tram outside groans around the corner. Somewhere on the floor above, someone drops a metal tray. The sound rings down the stairwell. Under my bed, the footsteps stop. The silence presses against my eardrums like water. Then, very slowly, the heel and toe resumes. Not away from me this time. Up, through. The mattress dips slightly, as if someone has sat at the foot of the bed. A weight. Not heavy. Familiar. The air smells faintly of cigarettes and ink, and the sour tank of a city that once burned for months. You can't keep it open forever, I say. We don't have to, Marek's voice says near my ankle. We just have to keep walking until someone else hears us and refuses to close it. There are more wars, I say. More tunnels? More last refugees? I know, he says. We've been listening. I close my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I let myself see what my ears have been telling me all along. The tunnel isn't just under Warsaw anymore. It runs under every place where people tried to leave and were told there was no more room. Under basements in Aleppo, under train tracks in the Balkans, under dirt floors in Ukraine. The line of footsteps goes on. Old boots, bare feet, new shoes bought cheap and worn down in days. They all walk the same way. past the point where someone bricked them in, under the homes of people who sleep without knowing what's below. If you listen to stories like this to the very end, you invite some of those footsteps into your own house. You let them find the hollow under your bed, the old pipes in your wall, the space between your floorboards and the ceiling of whoever lives below. The next time you lie awake at night and hear someone walking where there should be no one, don't rush to blame the heating or the neighbors. Hear them, count them, and whatever you do, don't be the one who decides the tunnel under you is finally empty. For the men and women who walked the tunnel under Warsaw in 1944, named and unnamed, living and dead, I am still listening.